All right. Alrighty. I'm putting on my swanky new Alpine Star what is it, 1KX or 1KXs. And they are kind of a kind of like a in between a navy and a royal blue, kind of like a really dark royal blue, I guess more navy. Anyway, with yellow and orange. So they are very poppy. And they're very comfortable. And they're very well made. And let's see what else. What else do I like about these Alpine Stars? It's pretty good shoes, actually. I had the cheaper version, the 1Ks, as opposed to the 1KX. And these are a little bit more refined. They also, instead of using laces, they have sort of a ratchet system that involves, the kind of string that they, a coated nylon string. And the coated nylon string is actually used in the body of the shoe to create, I don't know, it's like almost like ribbing that is then used to create the eyelets through which it goes. So anyway, it's a really interesting lacing system. It does not involve tying and untying anything, but it's not necessarily any easier than tying or untying anything because there's a ratchet where you pull it and then you tighten it. But I like this. It is good. This is a well-made and well-considered pair of shoes. So, we shall see how my driving experience goes with them, but I was not able to have them in time for my last race. They were supposed to have been here, but of course, something got in the way of that happening with UPS. Lord knows, every once in a while they run into trouble with FedEx and UPS, and my thing took substantially longer. But I have sim raced with them, and they are nice. They're nice they're nice grippy shoes and blah, blah, blah. So I don't have anything meaningful to say about them other than they are shoes. I like them. And if you are considering a pair, go for it. All right, with that being said, I believe it is time to put on our Epidemic Soft House Music playlist. And we're going to go by newest this time, mix it up a little. Actually, that's probably a terrible idea, but we'll do it anyway. All right, let's get some laps in. I have developed a very zen kind of approach to this track, which is I have the space fundamentally to do this, and I have what it takes fundamentally to set a new number one. And doing this, by that I mean breaking 18 seconds. And on a sector by sector basis, I have it. The problem is trying to do something that isn't 100% ingrained. And the challenge I've been having with this track is that it's hard. I find new things as I go along, and what I thought was true isn't true anymore, or is true in a different way, if that makes any sense. Like, there's many different ways to skin a cat in this scenario, which is a terrible analogy. There's many different ways to approach a turn, and I still don't know the answer to the question if there's one fastest, ultimate combination of inputs, both in terms of steering, but very much in terms of pedals. Like, how you brake, when you brake, how hard, how soft, how quickly you're releasing the brake, are you trailing, all these different things change things. And you can do a fast lap a number of different ways. And while I think in my heart of hearts there has to be one ultimate right way to do a thing. But none of that really matters in the real world, right? Because when you're racing, you're not... Yeah, it just... I mean, you're still... When you have open track, you're reaching for the horizon and you're trying to be perfect. And you're trying to get every single last revolution you can out of that engine, And you get into this kind of rev fever where it's hard to explain. An engine held on its top end for any considerable period of time it's momentous. I mean, you feel it. You feel it in your breathing, in your heart, in your head. I mean, it's wild. Anyway, let's go find our setup. Let's go do this one, as usual. Alright, can I make anything happen? I like that first number. That was pretty good. I think I'll play that again. Boys and girls, fan on and diver down. I may not speak, I don't know. We'll see. Unfortunately, the cold tires in this game are no longer as fun as they were in the past. When the tires were screwed up and you had the cold tire bug, if you set the tire pressure as low as possible, which was 6 psi, while the tire registered as cold in the game, which as you can see on my 4 wheels below, see how they're light green, light blue-ish right now, that's quote-unquote cold. And as it heats up, it gets progressively warmer in tone until it's bright red when it's super hot. So anyway, as you notice, if you'll follow what I'm doing here, as we go along in the laps, you'll see the tires heat up. So back a little while ago when they first initiated the tire changes, adding tire pressure and stuff like that, there was an accidental bug that was introduced, which was, I'm not exactly sure, and I don't know if, the guys ever explained it. I'm sure they'd be happy to. Maybe I'll ask them in the Discord. But anyway, the net effect was as follows. If you were to set the tire pressure to 6 psi, when the tires were cold, you had unusually good straight line acceleration out of corners. And you had unusually good grip. What you didn't have was sidewall stability. So you would kind of try to send these giant... Oh, and you couldn't brake either, not much at least. because if you did, you had to be like incredibly, you had to be careful with the brakes, like gentle to the point of almost obsessively so. But you'd fire it into the corner, crab walking as the, sort of having a weird feeling to the cart because, of course, the tire pressure is so low the cart is crab walking a little bit as, the sidewall rolls over. But then you would smoke it out of the corner and you were really fast. So the story is Dig, which is David Goldman, who's a go-karter from around where I live. All of a sudden in KartKraft one night put down like a number one time on every single track in X30. And they were like good times too. Like, it's like, like he got a lot faster than us and did all of them in one night. So clearly David's doing it all in one night was not an attempt to hide anything. It was clearly something was afoot. So we all chewed on this for a while. I thought tire pressure had something to do with it, but I didn't put it together with the Colt. Or I can't remember what I thought. Yeah, I think I thought it had something to do with tire pressure, but I didn't make the connection with temperature. But, having driven it, it's like occurred to me, well, sidewalls are doing strange things. There's this kind of crab walky thing going on, but yet the grip is good. Anyway, none of us gave it any thought until Dig did all the fast laps, because then we had to really think about it. Because remember, the tire heating phase means that you have 2 total laps of unbelievable advantage. And then it goes off quickly from there, and by lap 4, you're in normal driving territory, or lap 4 or 5. So it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so what ended up happening was, I think it was, what's his name? I'm having a senior moment. Anyway, one of the fellows who's a regular, who's very fast, that I am forever chasing on the leaderboards and have the honor of occasionally beating, but for the most part he's a faster driver than me. It's I believe is an Englishman who is in college or university or something. In any case, Jillian, which is Zykos. Yes, there we go, Zykos. So anyway, Zykos then figured it out and reported back the next day, or rather he let me know via private messaging, and then he and I went on a tear and took back everything. And but it was a fun time. Like, no one, obviously there's no hard feelings. No one got pissed. And David was not going to tell us what it was. So it was all figured. Actually, and I think eventually what happened was Jillian figured it out, and then David confirmed that that is in fact how it was done. So David was the first to recognize the potential of that and the first to execute on it, and it was a good time. They then subsequently fixed that, and as you can see now in the early opening laps here, I do not have an advantage with cold tires relative to the Ghost, right? You're actually at a deficit, and Oh, by the way, the other thing that was really annoying about time trialing with that other system, right, the cold tire thing, was that you wanted your flying lap to be your absolute perfect lap, right? So it was a one shot, maybe 2. If you were doing leaderboard stuff. So it was a hell of a lot of, do 2 laps, pit, start over, do 2 laps, pit, start over, which is really fucking annoying. So, all of us, I think, were glad to see the hindsight of that style, at least, of having to time trial. We have a really small player base right now, in terms of players that are, quick. Obviously, Tim Cheesy is very quick, and then there's our young German friend Tazzy, who is very quick. And I can't tell if the times some of the people that I passed on the way up are playing currently, or whether they were older times that they set, like 6 months ago and have since quit. But there are a bunch of fast people. Like if you look at the leaderboard, it's a pretty good leaderboard in that the distribution amongst times makes sense. There's enough good times so that you have very small gaps between positions. So it's fun to go up. And the gap at the top of the leaderboard is typically very, very tight. There's, you don't have like some guy who's a second faster than everyone else. We used to have Tongi who played a lot, and Tongi's an alien. But the good news is the rest of us, not the rest of us, but I'd say in my case, I think I was about half a sec, kind of, off Tongi. I think some of the other guys were, a little bit closer to him, but and then of course there was a period where we had people with Tongi's caliber more than one, but it was pretty short-lived. Because I guess if you're an alien, you don't have time to fuck around on things that you're not going to be racing on. And I'm guessing, or rather, what's the point of spending any time on this, because this is going nowhere as a game. Which is a crying shame, because this is such a fucking fabulous simulation. And like, look, do you see what I just did? Do you see that turn? Like that was so fun. Like, how can you not enjoy that? If you go-kart, this is just the bee's knees. It disappoints a lot of people, of course, because I think, they come in expecting, like, an experience that, well, I can drive a go-kart. Why is it that I'm spinning this thing out, the moment I brake? Well, the problem is feedback. You don't feel the loads, you don't feel the braking, you don't feel your body getting thrown around, in effect, by acceleration, deceleration, and lateral stuff. So you have to infer that information from a variety of sources. Sound, for one. Your steering wheel. Every force feedback system gives you some feedback. Quite a lot of it. And it's sort of like a big speaker. In addition to, giving very specific, steering wheel stuff, you do get a sense of other things. So I'm guessing there's some of that information in there. But it's a process to learn how to, convert those sensations into an understanding of the vehicle dynamics that comes much more naturally to you in real life, because, well, it's you driving an actual cart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, there is an adjustment period. You have to learn how to speak the language of the game. But once you do that, the driving is exactly the same in the vast majority of ways as real life. There are some areas where it deviates somewhat significantly in some cases, but it's not a big deal, because within the context of what you're doing in the game, it does not. How do I put this? It doesn't affect driving dynamics. In other words, you don't feel worse off for it from a driving perspective. It's not like, oh, there's something fundamentally broken here, and there's something off with this. Doesn't feel true to life. Now, everything about this feels extremely true to life to me. I mean, the reality is, I've been doing a lot of sim, and that was fun. Did you guys see that? My rear end bounced on the curb. I lost traction on one wheel, went boing, boing, boing with my back end as my rear tire was making and losing purchase, and I could feel all of it. Which brings us to my next point. I use a whole bunch of shakers on a aluminum 80/20 rig. I do not have motion, but the shakers do provide something that is in some ways similar to motion. I don't know how, but I feel the cart move. I feel things going on that are motion things. I feel wheel lift. I feel the axle banging around. I feel stuff that you feel in life when you're driving. It's a shadow of the real thing, but that shadow is enough to be able to, simulate. And anyway, so with shakers, I think you have the beginnings of true simulation, where your entire driving experience is starting to come together. My next stage of this is to get hydraulic actuators and start playing with that area of the experience. On a go-kart, hydraulic actuators I think they would be really interesting, because remember, go-karts do not have suspension. So, you don't have to replicate suspension travel. But there's a lot going on in a go-kart in terms of frame flex and wheels going bouncy and all that other kind of stuff. So I would imagine that motion rigs and go-karts are more than just fine. CXC Simulations did a little hobby project, I guess, for KartKraft, not for the company, but for themselves, where they made a kart rig. And it's about, I think it's like a, $40,000 rig if you wanted to buy it from them, so it's no joke. Basically, they took a Sodi cart or something and turned it into a rig, along with massive fans to simulate the airflow over your body, and, full motion, as well as, I'm sure, shakers and whatever else. It looks incredible. It's just the nicest thing I've seen. that was nice. Felt good at least. It wasn't fast, but it felt terrific. It wasn't slow either. It was a .100, more or less. I mean, it was almost fast, but not fast enough. That needs to be at least 5/100ths faster, at least. And really, we don't get interested until 10th. These days, I don't think anything under 9 is going to cut it. It is amazing. If you do something a lot, like I've been doing this track exclusively over and over and over again for a really long time because I've been trying to beat this record. And it's funny how things take time to understand and for stuff to set in, and I'm not even close to being there yet, but you know, your understanding that turns and everything changes as you go along. And there's a lot of subtlety when you're digging this deep, you know, like all the little things that you find when you're trying to make, you know, a few thousandths of an improvement. It's really kind of cool. Like how much there is left really in this track. There's a lot left. I bet you a .5 in the hands of somebody really amazing. I've managed to get my optimal as low as .65. But the problem with that is that that also includes bullshit S1s. So let's say for me the best I could see, like, breaking .8 is possible, I think. And I believe I am capable of running a mid .8. But it requires 3 utterly bang dead-on sectors. And while I've been chasing mastery a long time, I'm not a master. S3 continues to be vexingly difficult to nail. You know, I'm not doing 8.99 or better the majority of the time. It's an extremely rare thing for me to land. Now, you know, like yesterday, I guess in my session yesterday, I was pretty good. I ran maybe 10 or so of those. And, you know, my lap times are now, you know, I get to .20 like you're seeing very quickly. And then I'll start running laps in .1, .2 range and then start dipping into the zeros occasionally. Yesterday was the first time I ran anything dirty. 18 or better that wasn't a complete farce, or, you know, with a ludicrous cut or something like that. So I ran a couple dirty and slight, you know, and probably somewhat cut, but nonetheless very good laps that were sub 18. So anyway, the point being is I'm doing this a lot, and in the past couple nights I've noticed this like fluidity that's starting to happen with the driving on the track, and this like just not fluidity, it's hard to, it sounds pretentious, but comfort, understanding, like it's just like I don't know exactly what I'm doing or why I'm doing it sometimes, but I can do it. And it feels good. And I, you know, contrast this back to when I was, you know, in the early stages of this particular journey of AMPC, you know, leaderboard. And this section right here in particular is something that I just couldn't get my head around at all. Like, how do I enter the turn? How do I, you know, what is my track out? You know, how am I tracking out here? what's the speed supposed to be? I was able to tell over time, like, look, if you're slower than X in this sector, it's going to be shit. If you're faster than X in this sector, in this part of the turn, you're going to be pushed wide. So, through a process of elimination, you can sort of get down there. But that's kind of a really cool and interesting turn because it requires, the line is incredibly important. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And of course, you're playing with all of them. But it's just really technical. So as you learn and get better and better at it, like your fundamental understanding of what wide is, and I guess that's a great example. Your fundamental understanding of what being wide in a corner really means is revealed through that process. You start like here. Like, I was trying to figure out, like, what is going on at this point, right there. I know I want to be, in theory, apexing, I'm doing kind of this late apex, etc., but I couldn't understand how to carry speed through there. So, in effect, I was doing a lot of overdriving, taking the turn in a way that would be taking me wide at the middle and not understanding really that I was going wide. I mean, knowing that the turn wasn't working right and that I wasn't capturing all the speed. So anyway, that kind of stuff makes you change your understanding of the turn. And then eventually you get to the point where you're starting to feel like, you understand the track well enough that the cambers, the shit that's going on with the surface of the track starts just becoming kind of built into you. Like, that section back there has a lot of different little camber changes that have a lot of effect in terms of how you can put down power and how the intensity with which you can put down power at any given point in this pretty long and complicated turn. Little things like just simply changing the line a little bit. Like, for example, discovered taking a slightly later turn in on both this first section and this section here result in an ability to take a line that allows you to put down power earlier and longer while having the tire feel like it's making proper kind of grip all the way through the acceleration phase. What happens frequently in here is you're literally floating on slip angle and you're losing, you don't realize it, but your orientation is changing and you're expending energy, you're wasting energy laterally here. So in other words, let's say my wheels were spinning really fast, which they are, and I'm all in slip angle, and my cart is subtly turning the wrong way. I'm pissing in the wind. I'm putting down power that some portion of it is being wasted. It's a waste byproduct. And anyway, learning how to not have that happen was something that I had to go through, and I'm still going through. Just like it's almost like this longer discussion about something that's, in terms of driving a car, you have this grip, right? It's a finite amount, but that's what you're driving in right here is the grip that I can get between the tire and the road without having it, without, I guess, losing energy due to slip. And you can really put a lot of weight into the tires and really stretch that grip. Every once in a while, it's nice to drive just completely within it. And I suspect when you're completely balanced in that grip, it's really interesting because it feels kind of effortless and it feels really I don't know, it feels right. But you have to be like super disciplined, right? Because it's all about pedal. You have to never put in more power than that wants so that you don't fall out of that state, being kind of up on the tippy toes of the cart and slip angle, but yet not really overdoing it with lateral load, keeping it silky. Anyway, that kind of driving is really hard to do, and something I'm trying to learn how to do, and it's mostly in the foot, in terms of like what are you doing with throttle relative to wheel, the angle at which you have the steering wheel turned. It took me years to absorb the idea of if your wheels ain't pointed straight, you shouldn't be at full power. And once I started playing with that idea, it opens up a whole new world, right? Because the world isn't necessarily binary off-on switch. Which I thought it was for a long time in driving. You either were at full throttle or you were, on the brake and then back on full throttle. And it turns out it's a lot more subtle than that. And learning how you can be a lot more efficient, spend a lot less energy, and be ultimately faster. It's a journey. It's hard. It's something I've been struggling with. But I'm getting at it. It's too busy having a drag on my vape, so I didn't bother assisting my right arm there. And well, predictably into the wall we go. Oof. I wonder what VR or its successor will look like 10 or 15 years from now. This is pretty damn good. I wonder if we'll ever get to something more photorealistic. What would be kind of interesting would be like a cartoon version of KartKraft, like where they just say fuck realism, and you get this like almost like Beat Saber-y version of KartKraft in terms of, but it's exactly the same game. It's just totally graphically a different experience. In VR, that would be really interesting. But it has to, you're still driving an X30 on a real track. It's just, purple and has disco lights. That'd be funny, disco dank. And fast. Man, this is fun. I don't know, fun doesn't do it justice. It's not fun in the traditional sense. It's fucking great though. Yes, I mean it's definitely fun, but it's not like you don't buy this as a game, otherwise you'd be sorely disappointed because what I'm doing here is all it has due to the incompetence of the parent company. Literally, it's a time trial. That's it. And that's when the game is up. Motorsport Games pulled the developers off of this game, and they're working on an indie game title or something like that, which MG somehow conned or somehow convinced rather the governing body of whatever motorsport organizations that control these sorts of things, but license for the I guess NASCAR or no, not NASCAR, IndyCar. And so they were supposed to, deliver a IndyCar game, that people would be playing on in 2023 and or 2024, I guess. No, I think it's 2023. Anyway, Motorsport Games, of course, was not able to do that at all, nor do they have any sort of history of actually being able to do that sort of thing. So, anyway, they bought Zach's game. As a consequence, they had the devs, and the devs are being used to develop their other game. And there's no time for this game because the company's probably gonna not exist for too much longer if shit does not go right in a big way for them. And they did finally get rid of the CEO, Dimitri, whatever his name is, who basically ran the thing like some sort of fucking stock fraud. I swear to God, this thing the SEC is probably going to want to take a look at this. Just because, the way that this company has carved this swath of destruction through the sim racing industry, it looks and feels like basically what they're doing is going out and buying companies with borrowed money and then buying another company and then buying another company and using all of these sort of growth milestones through acquisition to be like, hey, look at us, we've got all this great shit and this great product and this great growth and we're doing all these things right, but it's all just a fucking shell game because they're gutting because they're not actually doing anything anyway. So they also kind of they in many ways do have they have these legitimate titles like KartKraft, they bought these games, so they do have people that can make games, and they're ostensibly a game developer as opposed to a buyer of other people's games, and then using that as, oh, look at us, we run a video game company. Anyway, that CEO got axed after, I guess, half the board resigned in a vote of no confidence, which suggests that there was some really shady shit being suggested. Probably, I'm sure fucking shareholders getting diluted all over the place. That was pretty good. Is that 8.967? That was a good lap. See? close. Now I just need to get a little faster. If I go optimal, now this is solid 0.1. So if you're not like all super like, oh, I must put the throttle down right away, you can actually, in situations like that little turn, end up getting more speed out of like really gentle transition from no throttle to throttle as you work your way through the changes that are involved going left to right. It helps keep you basically from going wide within the line. Think there's wide and then there's the line and then there's slightly wide of the line, that kind of stuff. Like if you're not putting a lot of energy through the cart with the throttle, the cart turns very, very easily, first of all, and very fluidly, very quickly. Turns faster rate of turn. As soon as you put power into the cart, all that goes away. Digging in. If I had maybe not given it throttle as much early as in the early part of that, I might have been able to keep that a little tighter with line. Sounds greedy. I put the foot down too soon. That was good. So that's the pace I need, by the way, for the fast lap. 8.9 or better. Lost a little bit there. Come on, man. Don't ask. Don't say go. I have to have to just wait. Touch longer. This is always my problem, fear of missing out. You know, I'm like forever turning in early and putting down the power too early. See, there's a downhill, and there's like, you just have to let it, just give it a second, otherwise you push ever so slightly wide. Nah, too much bouncy bounce. Could have been more. See, it took me forever to get to full power there. Like, I literally didn't feed it in until my wheels were straight. And I didn't seem to be too badly off for it. In terms of, like, kept me tight to where I wanted to be. I was exactly where I wanted to be. As opposed to a little bit left or a little bit right, or being pulled a little bit left or pulled a little bit right.